Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, I'm Kirsten Amanda and I'm a watercolor artist and small business owner. I posted a video a while back about how I got my art into a coffee shop, and believe it or not, that was the first store that I ever got my art into. Little old me had no idea what I was doing at that time, but I was just so darn excited that I got my art into a store that I wanted to film the entire process. But now, after having my art in stores for a number of years and having them in several different stores, I wanted to share all of my insight and experience with you. I had a few comments on the video I posted with some further questions about the entire process, and now that I have this experience, I'm going to be answering some of those questions today. So let's get into it because there is a lot to cover. P.S. If you have a product that isn't necessarily art that you want to get into a store, this video also applies to you. It's all the same. I wanted to break this question down further rather than it just being the entire theme of this video. I want to share with you what the first step you need to take to getting your art or product into a store. Spoiler, this is the hardest part. And not that it's difficult or confusing to do, it's actually quite simple, but it feels the hardest because you have to put yourself out there and take that first step to getting your art or product into a store. I had no idea if there was a process around this or what the right way to do this was, so I put it off for so long, but I actually really regret that because I could have been having my art in stores way sooner, and hopefully by the end of this video, you have the confidence to do that as well. The reason why I didn't feel very confident is because there's not a lot of information out there on this topic. It's really intimidating to think about reaching out to a store and just saying, hey, I want my products in your store. That is the scariest part, and honestly, once we can get past this first step, everything else should be pretty seamless, but I will also give you some tips and tricks to navigating the entire process of having your products in a store beyond the point of them saying, yes, you can have your products in the store. So how do you go about reaching out to a storefront to get your art or product in their store? My first recommendation is to find their email address. You can do this by looking on their website or their Instagram, or by calling the store and asking for the email address of the person who is best to contact about it. If you are an introvert like me and the thought of walking into a store or calling and talking about yourself worries you, then an email is where it's at. In an email, you can say everything you want to say without fear of forgetting something or saying the wrong thing. The first pitch to getting your art in a business is important because you want to showcase yourself. Tell them who you are, where you're from, and what products you have to offer and why you think that would be a great fit in their store. You don't have to go into detail at this point about pricing or what products you have to offer. All you're doing here is seeing if they're interested. If you'd like a mock example of the template I use for sending emails to new storefronts, you can find the link in the description box below and go onto my website and download that link for free. Of course, another way to reach out to a store is to go in person. If you're comfortable with this, I do think that this is a really great way for them to make that personal connection with you and get to know you face to face. Just ask someone who works there if you can speak to the manager or who looks after vendors, and then you can just make your pitch verbally. So I thought it was important to also mention the types of stores you should be reaching out to. And the answer to this question is all of them. If they sell locally made or handmade products, reach out. Don't narrow your opportunities to stores that just make sense for your product. For example, if you find a pop-up store that just sells locally made items, it makes sense that your art would go in there. If you find a coffee shop that is also selling other people's art, it makes sense that your art would also go in there. But I actually think it's better to reach out to other places that don't make sense. The reason for this is that you will stand out. I currently have my art in a beauty salon, and although that doesn't make sense, it's actually a great way for me to stand out. If you have your art in a coffee shop that has a ton of other art in that coffee shop, you're just going to be yet another vendor selling artwork. But if you're in a store that somebody isn't expecting to see artwork and they see your artwork, they're more likely to be drawn in towards that. And again, this goes for any product. I'm not saying that you can't also put your art or product in stores that make sense for you, but I also think it's just good to think outside the box. I currently have my art in coffee shops, pop-up shops, beauty salons, vintage stores, and consignment clothing stores. It can be any store you like as long as they sell locally made or handmade products. After you hear back from a store, or don't, what do you do next? Well, the answer to the latter is simple. Don't sweat it. I've been ghosted and received no response before, but the important thing is that I tried. Honestly, chances are if they already sell locally made or handmade products and they have the space for you, they're going to say yes. Out of all the places I've reached out to have my artwork in the stores, I've only been ghosted that one time. And I didn't let that affect me at all because that's bound to happen. Be open to rejection and don't fear it. If you hear back and the answer is yes, they will likely send you a vendor agreement or a consignment agreement. Basically, it's the terms to which you are agreeing for having your art or product in their store. This will include the percentage of sales they take and the percentage you get, your basic information, the way they want the inventory to be structured, the liabilities in terms of loss or theft, and in some cases, it will include specific days or time frames to drop off new art or rotate out your art off the shelves. It will also outline the pay structure they have and how they're going to pay you. They may pay you by invoice, they may pay you by e-transfer, and the pay structure is different at every place. At some places I have my art, I get paid per sale. At other places I have my art, I get paid when I reach a certain dollar amount, and at other places I get paid at the end of every month. Every place is going to be different in the way they do this, so just expect that you'll have different scenarios for each place that you want to get your art or product. They should also outline that they will send you a sales report or an online login for you to see which items have sold within the store. This way, if your inventory is running low and you need to restock, you can easily see what items have sold and which have not. If they don't outline how they will be notifying you of sales, ask. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience here. It's really important to know how you will know what items have sold and how you can track that on your end as well. If you're not aware of what products are being sold in the store, you have no idea what they owe you, you don't know what needs to be restocked, and this creates a big disaster. When I first got my art into the store, I had no idea that this was important, and after a while I was like, hey, I haven't made any money off my art in this store, that's odd. So I reached out to them and I was like, hey, have I made any sales? And they were like, oh yeah, you made a bunch. And I was like, cool, can I get paid? And they were like, sure, but you have to tell us what products sold. So I literally had to go into the store and take my artwork off the shelves, sit down at one of the tables in the coffee shop and start picking through to see where the gaps were in my inventory and what was remaining in the store. 10 out of 10 do not recommend. So that is a big tip that I have. Make sure they are notifying you of sales. If it's not every sale, at least monthly, so that you can track it on your end. Usually a consignment agreement will be for a set period of time, such as 6 months or a year. At that point, the store is not obligated to renew that consignment with you. Typically, this is from the store's end only, unless otherwise stated in the consignment agreement. You can end your side of the agreement at any point. And honestly, I have ended a consignment early due to what I was talking about before. It was just way more energy than it was worth. So with that, I will say, make sure you see in the consignment agreement all of the things that I spoke about, and if you don't, ask. And again, having this in an email is a really great way to have it on record, not only so that you can refer back to it, but if you ever need it for liability reasons, you can. Additionally, if you're not close to the stores that you're going to have your products in, you may want to consider narrowing down the amount of stores you have your stuff in. And again, this is just based on personal experience and the amount of time I personally have, because it is a lot to manage to rotate your items through the stores, keep up on the inventory, and you just want to make sure that this is manageable for you. So now for the juicy part, which is money. Unfortunately, there's no one size fits all for how much commission you're going to get at a particular store. If the store is a pop-up shop where they only sell locally made or handmade products, typically you get 50% of the commission. The reason that they take so much of a cut at these stores is that they're relying on locally made or handmade products to run their entire store. At a coffee shop, for example, I make 70% commission, and this is because they're not relying on your products or other people's products as their main income stream. It's just a supplemental income for them because they sell their own products, i.e. coffee, etc. So you're not the only thing that is bringing them in that income. I would say the average amount I see stores taking for their cut is 30%, leaving you with 70%. Now, I know this stings a little to think that if you sold the product yourself, you would be getting 100% of the profit, but if you sell that product within their store, you're only getting 70%. But let me tell you the benefits to having your product in a store and why I do think that sometimes losing the 30% is still giving you an advantage. If you're selling in a storefront, you're getting traffic through that store that you wouldn't necessarily be otherwise getting. For example, someone that walks into a coffee shop might not want to follow me on Instagram or has not stumbled across my page. Even though they were going to that shop for coffee, they see art and may decide to purchase it. It's kind of like having a market for your products all the time. You're being exposed to a number of people that you may not have otherwise reached yourself. In addition to this benefit of selling in stores, you also don't have to worry about packaging your product, shipping your product, or spending the time putting that all together. That's all on the store. So not only are you getting your time back, but you don't have to worry about those extra costs, and in the long run, that could make up for your 30%. I also think having your product in stores is also a great way to build your reputation in a community. So all in all, I think 60 to 80% of profit for you is fair unless it's a pop-up shop. I would recommend though never taking less than 50% of the cut. I did have someone ask the question about negotiation, and personally for me, I wouldn't recommend negotiating with a business on the percentage that you make. It's different if it's an art gallery or something, but when it's a store that has an agreement with all of these different vendors, they're likely not going to change what they have as their store policy for one person. I think that they would want this to be fair to everybody and to know that everybody is making the same percentage and that it's clean cut for them. But hey, it doesn't hurt to ask. So now that you're ready to get your product into the store, you may be wondering how to price it. This is going to be completely up to you. From a logical perspective, we can say that if the store is taking 30%, you take the amount that you'd like to make off that product and you upcharge it by 30%. But as I mentioned before, you're not paying for any of the packaging, any of the shipping, and you're getting your time back for this as well. I like to have a fair price for all my products, so for me personally, I market them at the same price that I do on my website as I do in the store. For me, this is just taking into consideration everything that I mentioned and all of the benefits to having your artwork in the store and just sitting with that 30% loss. This is something that's completely up to you, of course. Use your own discretion on what you think is fair. A tip I have for pricing is to buy blank stickers and hand write your pricing on. The reason for this is if at one store they are taking a larger cut and you want to increase your prices, you can easily do that. If another store is taking less of a cut and you want your prices to be a bit lower where you would normally sell them at, then you can adjust them really easily. If you have gone out and bought a roll of stickers for your prices and then you want to adjust them, that is just a waste of time and money if you end up changing your mind about pricing. Another thing I wanted to mention is that some stores will require you to put your own pricing on, and other stores prefer to do this themselves. So again, just make sure you're asking this question in advance so you know whether or not to spend time and money pricing out your products. As for the displaying of your pieces, this is something you may want to ask in advance as well. Some places want you to bring in your own display for your products or artwork, and other places have their own shelves or displays that they will use. I spent a bunch of time and money looking for displays for certain stores, and then I ended up bringing my products in and they either told me they didn't need the display, or they later took my artwork out of that display and put it on their own shelves. However, in some other cases, my displays have stayed in the store since I brought them in. So again, just make sure you're asking this question before you go out purchasing displays. As I spoke about before, it's a good idea to have your own inventory of what products you brought to the store and update that as items sell and as you bring new items in. This way you always have record of what products you've provided them with in case anything happens. My recommendation on what to include in the inventory on your end is the product name and description, the product number, the size, and the price. Of course, if you have products that come in different colors, then you can also do it that way. For me, my artworks come in different sizes, so I make sure to list the size. So to recap this video's takeaways, step 1, reach out via email or in person. And again, if you'd like to use the mock email template that I use for reaching out to storefronts, the link is in the description box below. Step 2, review the consignment agreement. Make sure it includes the length of term, the percentage of profits, loss or theft, inventory and drop-off schedule, and how you will get paid and when. Step 3, ask questions before you bring your products in. Do you need to price your own artwork? Do you need to bring your own display? How will they notify you of sales? Step 4, price out your product accordingly, either on the product itself or in the inventory that you're providing to them so that they can price it out. Step 5, bring your product into the store and pray for sales. That's all I have, guys. I hope this video was helpful, and if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video.